starting off, I was working on munitions, building jigs and fixtures for the Lancaster bomber. Then I volunteered in 1942 for the Air Force. Now, they would only take aircrew because I was in a reserve occupation. So I joined aircrew. Within 6 months, by the end of 1943, I was fully qualified as a flight engineer on Lancaster bombers. Then, when I was fully qualified, I got posted to a squadron, 49 Squadron at Fiskerton in Lincolnshire, and there we started bombing raids on Germany. I did approximately 6 raids on Berlin. I did 1 raid on Frankfurt, and then in February, the 20th of February 1944, on my 21st birthday, we did a raid on Leipzig. We got back, we lost 78 planes that night. We got back, I should have come home on leave, but they put us down for another raid on Stuttgart. Still on the 20th of February 1944, I was still on my 21st birthday. We went to Stuttgart, we bombed Stuttgart, and over the target, one of the anti-aircraft guns hit us and blew the rear door open. And the rear door was swinging inside the aircraft. I was too busy with Jack, the pilot, I was the engineer. We sent the wireless operator down to close the door. He grabbed an emergency oxygen bottle, went all the way down the fuselage, got to the door, and his oxygen bottle packed up. So he was unconscious. So the skipper found out he was unconscious through the rear gunner. So skipper said, "Alan, you'll have to go down and help Frank." So I grabbed a bottle, went all the way down the Lancaster fuselage, got to the door, found Frank, took my gloves off to fix Frank up with a spare oxygen bottle, helped him and dragged him back all the way to his main position, the front of the aircraft. Then unfortunately, I went back with the same oxygen bottle in my Irving jacket, got to the door, I managed to swing it closed, was 22,000 feet up in the air, closed the door, and then unfortunately my bottle packed up, so I blacked out. My hands was touching the airframe with no gloves on. It was minus 45 below freezing. So what happened then, the skipper then decided to dive down from 22,000 feet to 10, and at that height I recovered, but it sent the bomb aimer for me, so the bomb aimer myself went all along the fuselage to my position where it was warm, and instead of going back to Lincoln as squadron, we landed at a fighter squadron, RAF Ford, at Sussex. Now from there they took me in an ambulance to East Grinstead, where the guinea pigs were. Took me to the hospital, and then at the hospital I was under the care of Sir Archibalu McIndovi, the very famous plastic surgeon. So what he did with me, he put my hands in 2 ice buckets to try and save them, but what had happened, gangrene had set in the tips of the fingers and was travelling all the way down, and all the fingers and my thumb went black. So what he had to do after 3 weeks, he had to chop them all off, and then when he'd done that, it was a matter of time of plastic surgery, and I would only let them do one hand. So they did one hand, an operation, and then I'd go home on leave, when I come back, another operation, and then the same with my right hand. Because the reason why I wouldn't let them do 2 together was I was helpless. I was just completely helpless. as I was when my hand was in ice bucket. So that's why I insisted on doing one hand, getting this mended, and I was independent, and then doing the other. So I remained in hospital, in and out hospital, 9 months. And then McIndoe put me in for a special test to a Dassel House in London. I passed, and I went back flying on Halifax's, the other big 4-engine bomber. And we used to train, I was there 3 months, we used to train navigators with the special H2S instruments to Gibraltar and back. And but while I was there, I ended up, May 45, VE Day came, Victory in Europe. So then I had to think about getting out. So what I did, I asked the Guinea Pig Club, and they arranged it through the Air Force so that I could be demobbed on the very first batch of demobbed. So I came out of the Air Force in early 46, and then I started my work as an engineer, the work that I was working at before I joined. And I've been a skilled toolmaker all my life till I was 60. Doing fine work, making jigs and fixtures for Rolls-Royce, British Aerospace and things like that. So really, I've had a good run. Well, I remember Frankie, yeah, but only as a patient in Ward 3. I remembered, what was it called, Ella? Aloise Šišku. Now, I was with him, and he had frostbite in his toes, but he was on Wellingtons. Right. And but he was there during the wartime with me in the Ward 3 at the hospital. Guinea Pig Club has been the finest, it's been the godsend of 450 guinea pigs that was all badly burned and badly injured, and with us keeping together, the guinea pig has helped the lads to get jobs from the war, and also we've had good reunions every year. And if anybody's been financially drained, the Guinea Pig Club has been a wealthy club, and it has helped guinea pigs till it's closed. It finished. The guinea pig finished last year. Now we are trying to keep it going by good friends such as Jan Horrell. He's keeping it going, like, you know, and we are sticking together and having social outings. We go to all the air bases, and like he's invited us here to the Czech Republic. And as I say, in 2000 we came to the palace, and the government label, was it called, he gave us all a proper medal, you know, for what we had lost and suffered in the fight for freedom. And it's the only government that's given Bomber Command a true medal, you know. Even his own British government have not given Bomber Command a special medal. So that was the last time I was over here.
In your civic life, did someone show you that you were disfigured? Did someone just say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that?
Well, when I first started, it was difficult to get a job because they would put problems. They thought I couldn't do the job, but I proved them all wrong. But one factory I went, they wanted tool makers, and I kept my hands in my pocket, and I said to for the interview, I said, well, I said I can do any, it was a contract tool making firm. I said, I can do any jobs you've got. And he said, right, start on Monday. Anyway, 3 weeks later, when I was working on a milling machine, he come up to me and he said, Morgan, he said, you never told me you'd lost your fingers. I said, no. I said, but, I said, are you satisfied? I'm satisfied, he said. And I worked for him for 11 years. Carried on working for him. And we did some terrific work. We did work jigs and fixture on the rocket, you know, the first American spaceship. We did work on that. I did inspection fixtures with no fingers, this is, inspection fixtures for Rolls-Royce of England. And it was two firms I went to where you had to work, or otherwise they'd sack you. They give you drawings, and if you couldn't do the drawings, the tools, out you'd go.
If you could look
so
back,
really I held my own with the best tool makers.
if you look back, would you regret on something in your life, or you had a good run during your life? Have you ever
Personally,
regretted
myself,
not having the fingers?
through the Guinea Pig Club, I've had the marvellous life. I've had a real good life. Been invited to, we've dined with the Duke of Edinburgh, we've been to the Queen's Garden Party. We'd have never had these invites without being a guinea pig. And we hosted at any big RAF stations in England. So really, yeah, I've enjoyed my, and I've had a good family, two lads, one's been a dentist, one's been an engineer, and it's been great. Scampton, you know.
Right.
We got paid at Scampton.
You didn't have a problem with signing the checks in the bank?
No, I do that.
How you do that? Pick up the cash then. That's great. Thank you. Another one would be to EAK. Novak.
Why did they put the dots over there?
Oh, don't worry about that.
Difficult language.
STO.
My name is Vanora Marland. I am the daughter of Archibalu McIndovi, who was the plastic surgeon who made an enormous difference, not only to plastic surgery, but to the lives of a lot of men. I think he was exceptional in a great many ways because he had a tremendous belief in human dignity. And when he found himself in a position where he had to look after a great many young men who'd been really, really badly burnt during the war, he realized that they were not ill, they were not sick, they were simply young men who'd been wounded in the service of their country. So he treated them exactly as they should have been treated. In those days, military hospitals had a very bad reputation, really. You had to stand to attention in bed when the doctor came round, and you lost your chance to wear the uniform in which you had been wounded, and you were sort of treated as a lesser person, and you lost your rights as a soldier or an airman or a sailor. And he changed all of that. He insisted that they wear their uniform, he insisted that they were properly paid, he insisted that they were given the respect that they deserved. And he had people from all over the world, actually a few from America, but very few, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Canada, France, literally right across Europe. Everybody who fought in the RAF for England and was burnt in the service of their country came through East Grinstead if they were really bad. And these men were absolutely exceptional, and they decided to form a club. It was a drinking club. And they called themselves the Guinea Pigs because they thought that the surgeons who were operating on them didn't know anything about what they were doing, and it was all experimental, so they thought that they were guinea pigs. And there was much hilarity and laughter at that time. But afterwards it became something much more serious. They looked after each other, and people gave them funds, and they formed a situation in which if any guinea pig was in trouble, they could go to the Guinea Pig Club, and the Guinea Pig Club would help them financially or in any other way, getting work after the war. getting jobs, keeping themselves well. Many of them, actually all of them, I think, married. Some of them several times, lots of children. And there are very few of them left. And they are exceptional people. And we are very lucky to have those of them who are with us still, because they are the perfect example of amazing courage and fortitude. I can't really think of anything else to say.
What do you remember about Frankie Truhláře, one of our 4 guinea pigs? Can you tell us anything, really? How you met him, where, when?
Well, I suppose I was really a little girl then. I suppose I was about 12, 13. And I spent a lot of time in the hospital. In fact, it was my sort of play garden. I just attached myself to anybody who was like a stray dog who was interested or who didn't mind my being there. I had lots of jobs to do. People gave me jobs to do, so that at least I felt useful. I was at school in the area to start with, and so I was there all the time, and I met them all. And I remember Frankie well because he had a very good sense of humour. Actually, they all had a sense of humour. Frankie had a very good sense of humour, and he had beautiful manners, which was, I suppose, his Czech background. And he would draw himself together and click his heels and bow. And sometimes, just to be a joke, he would kiss my hand when he saw me. I thought that was just wonderful.
And haven't you been scared of his badly burns? You know?
No, because I grew up with it. It's not something which has ever bothered me at all. I think I can understand other people's shock if somebody puts out their hand for you to shake and there isn't one. But for me it was just normal. In fact, I only noticed things like, oh gosh, you've got a new nose, or you've got ears, because it changed the expression, it changed the way they looked completely. But it wasn't, no, I wasn't at all frightened. And I am still not of any kind of disability. I suppose you just grow up with it.
When did you see him for the last time? Because, as you know, he was returning back to your father in 1946, and 3 months after that he had his crash, which some people said was suicide and some people said it was just sort of fate. So when did you see him lastly?
Well, I suppose it must have been just before that. I often wonder, I think so many of the boys went back, but that they weren't actually really strong enough to fly. My father used to try to stop them. He'd always say, you've done enough. But they were young, and they loved flying. And that was half, they'd lived a whole lifetime in 3-4 short years. And they'd had the most incredible time. And they just didn't want to be divorced from aeroplanes and sit at a desk and push paper around. And so they always wanted to go back. But you need quite a lot of strength to fly.
So actually, did you follow the whole life in the hospital? Did you see him for the first time after his bomber crash and then his second crash in the fighter pilot? Or
yes, I suppose, yes. I mean, yes, I knew that he had come back a second time. But his first lot of burns were the worst.
Yeah.
They were really bad. And I think the trouble is that airmen's burns are the hands and the face.
Yeah.
But the hands are the most important thing, and the use of the fingers. And in those days, the hands sort of drew down into claws very easily. And although a lot of them went back, they used to have exercises with tennis balls, squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. And sometimes shaking hands with one was a bit painful because, you know, they got their hands very strong. But everything wasn't strong enough, I think, to do it all. One man told me that he'd come home after the war, and all of a sudden, one night, the police came and took him away and put him in prison. He didn't know if he would be in for half an hour or a year or for the rest of his life. He had no trial. His family were disposed elsewhere, so he didn't see them. And he said, I could understand the Germans doing this, but I couldn't understand my own people doing this to me. It must have been absolutely terrible. Because you have no, and you all the time, you don't know what is going to happen next. You don't know how long you will be there. And they, of course, they were treated so appallingly in prison. I did see there was that wonderful film, Dark Blue World.
Yes.
Which I thought was very moving. Only what I have, but I don't have any.
I'm Paddy Ireland. I was a flight engineer, the 76 Squadron, flying Halifax bombers. And on the night of 15th of September 44, we took off to bomb Kiel. And something went wrong at the end of the runway, and the Halifax hit some trees, and we did a forced landing on the Yorkshire moors, and the undercarriage collapsed, and it caught fire. And
That is incendiary bombs?
we're carrying both high explosive bombs and, of course, incendiaries, a lot of incendiaries, and 2,000 odd gallons of petrol. And as we skedaddled over the Yorkshire moors, there was an enormous bang, and everything went black. And when I woke up, I was surrounded in flames. And to my astonishment, I could see stars up there, so I just jumped. That's it.
That was quick.
It's so quick. And we were picked up quite quickly from the squadron. And first of all went into Rossby Hospital in Lincolnshire, where I met Aloise McIndovi. He used to come round on his rounds. And then on to Marchwood Park, and then on to East Grinstead. And I've only had a few actual operations, sort of five in all. So I'm one of the, I think I'm third youngest in age,
Really?
guinea pigs. And when we crashed, I'd been in the RAF for 1 year and 9 days.
Even if you suffered so badly during the war, do you still regret of joining the RAF and being actually in the war itself?
I don't regret joining the Air Force, though my own brother was lost without trace. But no, the war had to be fought, and I was proud to take part in it. What I don't like is the way that the country has gone to the dogs since.
You know, this is Františka Truhláře.
Ah, yes.
You know, actually, and we did a sort of story about him, and we tried to get it to the Czech television.
Yes.
You know, so this is what we do. This is one poster. This is for the same thing.
Yes.
It says, you know, what we have done and stuff. So
Yes.
and it should be in a cinema in 1 month's time, just on this pre-premiere thing.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Do you have any Halifaxes, 4-engine?
Oh no, he was on Wellington, you know. So he was on Wellington.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.